min kanal. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I started off in Swedish because today I'm making a video on how it is to live in Sweden. So yeah, why not start off in Swedish? So I'm born and raised in Sweden, so I have a pretty thorough insight on how it is to live here, and hopefully this video will help you get an insight on how it might be to live here, what things can you expect coming here, and if you're Swedish watching this, maybe you can relate to some of the things that I'm gonna say. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna talk about is the fashion, the Swedish fashion, which is raved about all over the world, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty like classy and simplistic, but still very edgy. But the fashion here in Sweden, what I feel, is like a uniform. Everybody look the same, everybody looks so similar, and it can be boring sometimes. So to give you a really good example on how similar Swedes look, I'm gonna share this story with you. So years ago, me and my friends were in London, and a promoter came up to us, and before we even had opened our mouths to say anything, like this man could not possibly know anything about us. He just said, "You guys are Swedish, right?" And we were like, "What?" And mind you, all of us were black. So it was just so funny that he could pinpoint where we were from, and we were like, "Oh my god, yes, we're from Sweden. How did you know that?" He said, "You guys look the same, you guys dress the same, like you have a uniform. You're wearing the Swedish uniform." And it was so funny because at least 3 of us had leather jackets, skinny blue jeans, and Converse shoes, and probably a bun. That was the Swedish uniform. Today, the uniform is black skinny jeans, long black duster coats that like elegantly flows in the wind, and some Nike trainers, black and white Nike trainers. So yeah, that's the uniform. Pretty much we all look the same. Doesn't matter which ethnic background, you can spot a Swede anywhere. Another thing, there's a really strong coffee culture in Sweden. So everybody drinks coffee, like, and it's not just any coffee, it's strong coffee. And we have this thing called fika, which is essentially a word that means coffee break. So you take your coffee and a little biscuit or a cinnamon bun, which is very Swedish as well. So yeah, fika is a really big cultural thing here in Sweden. The living situation in Sweden, or in Stockholm particularly, because that's where I live, so that's what I can speak for, is it's kind of frustrating. It's definitely hard to find an apartment in Sweden, in Stockholm. It's very expensive and it's a very crowded city, so you can expect to have a difficult time of finding one. Like a rental apartment, you will probably have to be in this queue system that we have for years before you can get a rental apartment, or you can opt for buying, but that's not so easy for someone who's just left, you know, uni, or somebody who's not like financially well off. It's not easy to buy an apartment. So in Stockholm, you use the subway system to get around, and buses, of course, but the subway system can be late sometimes. I think more than it should be. You have like, there's always some signal error, or there's a power cut, or there's some kind of slippery tracks, railroad tracks. It's just so annoying. During fall time, it's like leaves on the tracks, and I'm just like, for years this is the same thing that happens every single year. Why have we not fixed it yet? Swedes are on time, don't mess with their schedule. Like, being on time is a thing, and that's a gene that I don't really have, so I'm definitely working on that. Being late is a big no-no. So Swedish people can come across as being introverts and shy and, you know, not very talkative, but it's just in the culture that you don't really talk to people that you don't know. It's just not a thing to start conversations with random people, and you need to do some work to get to know them. So for example, I've heard that foreign exchange students in universities, they say it's so hard finding Swedish friends because it's hard to kind of crack open that first layer. When you crack open that first layer, you'll notice that they're really cool people that are really interested in, you know, learning, getting to know others, and sometimes they might even be too open, and you'll know all about them. Okay, so in Sweden we have this thing called LAGOM, and it's a word that there's no direct English translation, but it basically means Not too much and not too little, but just right. The thing is, you don't want to be too much. You don't want to be like over the top or brag about yourself. You don't want to have too much things. It's about conforming, and it's really talks very much about the Swedish society, which values, or at least before, it's changing now, but values conformity and kind of falling into the line of how things are supposed to be. So in Sweden we have a pretty developed welfare system. School is free, and not just like elementary school and high school and all of that, but even university, which I think is so amazing. Like, we are so privileged here. Like, if I wanted to, I do have my master's degree, but if I wanted to, imagine I can get my PhD for free. Like, I think that is just so amazing, that if you want to, the opportunity is there. All the way up to high school, you also get like free lunches and stuff in school. Healthcare is free up till you're 18, I believe, and then it costs money, but it's not that expensive. I've never been unemployed. I've never have had a serious illness and stuff like that, so I've actually not tested all aspects of the Swedish welfare system, which I know that there are people or individuals that fall through the cracks, and that this net or the safety net sometimes does fail. But all in all, what I know, it's pretty good. The sale of alcohol is actually monopolized, so there's only one store in Sweden that is allowed to sell alcohol. Obviously they have several locations all over the country, so we don't have one single store in the whole country, but it's monopolized, and it's basically to stop alcoholism. So this monopoly on selling alcohol actually comes from a history where Sweden was very affected, heavily affected by alcoholism. It was a really serious issue. Like, people consumed, in the 1800s I believe, people consumed so much alcohol that sometimes people would even get paid, like have part of their payments in alcohol, and which was to the detriment of society, of course. It was a way for the government to take care of its citizens and protect them from themselves, essentially. So historically, and even till this day, the government, the state's apparatus is heavily involved in our everyday life here. Another point that I want to bring up is that Swedes love America and Swedes love Americans. And maybe someone will disagree with me, some other Swede who's watching this, but that's just my observation from seeing, you know, what is aired on TV, the movies that we consume. We have all of these shows that are like road trip in America, Swedes going to America to learn how to bake American, you know, apple pie, muffins, cupcakes, all of that. Like, it's just a really, I think, a heavy focus on American culture. So to me, my observation is that Swedes love that. So Swedes are fairly good at speaking English. They're taught English from elementary school, so we have a pretty good understanding of English, and even if some of us are shy to speak English because it's not our first language, we do understand. So it's not going to be a hard time for you, for a foreigner to maneuver in the society if you speak English. Oh my god, so the social life in Sweden, I feel, is pretty limited and pretty boring, if you want to say that, and that has a lot to do with the culture of Swedes being a bit introverted, or, you know, not really talkative, and it can be hard to find new friends here. And I think it also has a lot to do with the weather. Basically, it's dark a lot of times of the year, it's cold, and people just go home after work. We don't really do that much. But when Thursday and Friday creep up, you have after work, and people start loosening up, start warming up, and then when the weekend comes, people go wild. A couple of drinks and they just open up. Okay, so when it comes to religion, Swedish people are quite secular, in my opinion. Obviously, there are churches, there are other places of worship here and there, and they are visible, you can see that, but out on the street, like in the public sphere, I don't really hear people talking about God or faith and religion very much, or in a serious manner. I'm so used to seeing people of color having faith, and so, but living in Sweden, I'm not used to seeing Swedish people being like very serious about their faith. In church, I've seen like mostly old people who grew up back in the day when church was more prevalent in people's lives, but these days not so much, or at least not in Stockholm, maybe more so out in the countryside and stuff. So guys, that was the end of this video. Obviously I'm talking about these things from my perspective. Some of them are quite stereotypical, not to offend anyone, but yeah, that's just my observation, being born and growing up here my entire life. I'm originally Tanzanian, if you're interested, and I'm going to actually move to Tanzania for 6 months, so I'm leaving on Monday, so definitely stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of videos from there, and I'm probably going to make some type of tag so you can hear me talk about my Tanzanian heritage. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!